everyone. A big welcome back to season 5, episode 23. He says, counting, yes, of the Nick Elston Show. Very excited for this one. Day 3 of the podcast today will release week here in November. And who knows where we could be in November, because we're recording this in October and the world's that fast changing in a minute. Who knows? Let's see what happens. Anyway, so great to be back. I hope you've enjoyed this week's show so far. So just to recap, we had the brilliant Paul Holbrook, the founder of Diary Detox, talking about being a time rebel. Interesting one. The second one, we talked about M-Sharp yesterday and deaf awareness and supporting deaf awareness in businesses and in life generally. And today we have another amazing guest. Give it up for Sarah Adderley. Woo!
Thank you.
Hey. You all right?
I'm very well, thank you. And
Good.
I must admit, I've never had an introduction like that, so it took me back a little bit.
I am available for emceeing anytime you wish. It's fine, no worries.
I don't think I'd be able to afford you, Nick. That's the other thing.
I'm surprisingly cheap. No, I shouldn't say that, really, should I? Yeah.
No, you shouldn't.
Okay, so there we go. Our paths crossed through the wonderful world. Actually, we both do a lot of work in the contact center space in different directions, different ways. And as has been alluded to, actually, as part of the show with Paul this week, it's a challenging environment sometimes when it comes to contact center, but especially when you're dealing with life's challenges, I guess. And our paths crossed through, I believe it was the Southwest Contact Center Forum in Core Northwest. I may be wrong.
Possibly, yeah, possibly. Yeah. There's a lot happened since then.
you happen to pop onto the screen, and you were talking something around this area of well-being for teams, and I loved what you had to say, and that was it. I just had to connect with you, and then following that, and now signpost to help me, Angela. We'll talk about that as we go through too. And also, of course, you're now on the show. So I've told everybody kind of how I met you. Sarah, tell everybody who you are, what you do, where you're from. Think of chase. Think of it on the chase, that kind of thing.
Okay. Well, thanks again for the introduction, Nick. And yeah, a little bit of a background about myself. So my name's Sarah Adderley, and I am currently the Training and Contact Centre Operations Director at Help Me Angela. So we are a personal safety app available for anyone to use 24/7. And I've been with the company now for, believe it or not, it will be actually 2 years in January. Time has absolutely flown by, but it's certainly been a roller coaster of a journey, and obviously a pleasure to meet you, Nick, and to get to know you that little bit more.
Absolutely, thank you so much. And do you know what? I've actually inadvertently promoted you when I've been building up this episode for the past 2 episodes. I've been announcing you as a co-founder of, so just take the promotion.
Oh yeah. Well, hopefully the chairman will be listening to this and will give you that
exactly. Yeah. Nick said it's fine, and the salary increase and everything else. Yeah. So okay, so we're gonna get to kind of what you do now and what Help Me Angela is about, because it's crucial we talk about that today, and obviously what's next as well. But before we get there, I want, as the theme of the show is to look behind the person behind the brand, the person behind the title. Tell us about baby Sarah. Tell us about growing up and education and family, and what's led you to be at my virtual door today.
Baby Sarah, wow. Well, I mean, baby Sarah is actually 40 in December, so not quite a baby anymore. But yeah, baby Sarah basically was born and brought up in Preston, which is in the northwest of the UK. And after school, I was very fortunate enough to get a modern apprenticeship at Springfields Fuels Limited. So I was there for 6 years, and because I didn't want to become, even though I was very young to make this decision, I didn't want to become institutionalized, and I was kind of doing the same things day in, day out. I, through a friend of a friend, had a conversation one day with a police officer, and the police officer was very new to the world of policing, and ultimately I'd considered becoming a police officer, but I just had no idea where to start. So because of his kind of inspiration, I actually applied, and the process to actually, from the paper sift to actually get the to get the kind of sort of thumbs up that I've got the job, as it were, took 18 months from start to finish.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, it was an incredible long time back then. That was in 2006, I think it was. So yeah, quite a while ago now. But ultimately, those 18 months gave me the opportunity to realise that, yeah, actually, this is really what I want to pursue, and this is something that I really want to get involved in. So I left Springfields in March 2006, and I became a police constable for Lancashire Constabulary. So my collar number at the time was 67, and yeah, I had an array of experience, really, from frontline to plan response to working on the custody reception team. And then my final days, as it were, I went to work with some amazing people in the contact centre on the initial investigation unit. And that's where my contact centre experience and journey began, as it were. So after I was given a fantastic opportunity to join the change management team at Lancashire Constabulary. And during that time, I redesigned the force control room, and I also started to deliver training. And during that time, I sort of found my passion, really. I found what I call, you've probably heard of the Japanese proverb, the Ikigai.
Yes.
So I found my
do
Ikigai.
Explain that. Do explain that for people.
I'll explain the Ikigai. So someone once said to me, once you found your Ikigai, it's kind of like if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you've got self-actualization at the top of there. So the Ikigai is, what do you love? You know, what you're passionate about, what are you good at, and what can you get paid to do? And I was passionate about training and development. I was told I was very good at it, and I found out that I could get paid to do it. So I took the giant leap of faith in November 2009 after reading Susan Jeffers' book, Fear the Fear and Do It Anyway.
Okay, yeah.
So I read that book in November 2019 after being offered a fantastic opportunity to go to the Middle East and train 1,200 female students within a military college. So I took the giant plunge, went self-employed, went to Saudi Arabia, absolutely loved it, was very passionate about what I was doing. You know, felt like, yes, self-actualization, you know, 36, 37 years old at the time. This is what I really sort of, you know, want to do for the rest of my life. And guess what? COVID struck.
Yep.
So I went self-employed at the worst time ever. But then again, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and I do believe that everything happens for a reason. And because of that, I ended up coming home to the UK. I was unemployed. I was unemployed, Nick. I'd gone from being employed from the age of 16, now 37 years old, and technically unemployed, albeit I was still self-employed. And in respect of training, there were no courses running. No one had really grasped the virtual world as such. And everyone was kind of sort of like confined to their houses. It was sort of like, well, what do I do now? And it was just literally perusing, you know, the job market one day, and came across an opportunity to actually go and work as a trainer on one of the COVID testing sites. And I am one of these people whereby I always want to work, and I will do anything, especially if it gives something back. And, you know, a lot of people were sort of stuck at home, but I was actually able to go out to work. And I met such a fantastic array of people working on these COVID testing sites, from airline pilots to doctors to nurses, and, you know, you name it, I met those individuals. And it was incredible. It really was. And thoroughly enjoyed it, but knew that it obviously wouldn't last forever, thankfully. And then it was in September, actually, that I was talking to our chief ambassador, Michelle Roycroft at Help Me Angela, who wanted someone, believe it or not, preferably ex-police, with contact centre experience and training experience. And I ticked all the boxes.
Oh, it's a sweet spot for you, isn't it? How did you know Michelle? How did you kind of cross paths?
Well, it was actually, I don't know if you're aware of the Facebook page, Jobs for Ex-Police Officers.
Okay, no, I'm not on Facebook, so I'm not sure.
Oh, okay, oh yeah. So I was literally just perusing that one day, She popped up. I got in touch with her. We had a conversation over the telephone. I then had a sort of formal interview with her, and yeah, the rest is history. And I've been with them ever since. So at the moment, that's what I'm sort of doing. My prime focus is Help Me Angela. But what I also do as well is I work for a number of other training companies, providing training such as leadership and management, personal effectiveness, soft skills, that kind of thing. But it certainly keeps me busy, put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Amazing. I think actually that kind of portfolio career is kind of, there's something to be said for that, not just in terms of security or the commercial element of it, but I think actually in terms of just enjoyment to have that variation. And we were chatting just before I hit record about kind of this week. I'll be honest, we're recording this on 28th of October, which is a Friday afternoon. Mm-hmm. And I've been on the road all week and like kind of thinking like I'm a little bit kind of frazzled today until I started this, of course. And yeah, it's just, but the variation of what I do really keeps it interesting. So I can absolutely understand why that kind of invigorates you in the way that it does.
It does. And, you know, I mean, very similar to the policing world, really, in that no day is ever the same. No day is ever really the same for me now. But I just sort of love that. You know, I've found my sort of self-actualization. I'm doing something that I'm passionate about, that I absolutely love. And, you know, ultimately, you know, going back to Help Me Angela, we are there to help people and enable people to feel safer. You know, and if we can just help one person from becoming a victim of crime, then ultimately we've achieved our purpose, what we've set out to do. And it really kind of does go hand in hand with my career and, you know, where I am on this journey. So yeah. I feel very privileged and lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will certainly come on to Help Me Angela very shortly. But in terms of the kind of your police experience, we've been very fortunate over the 5 seasons this has been running now to have a lot of kind of former kind of blue light kind of workers, blue light kind of staff that have gone on to do great things, very often in the kind of coaching space. And each one of them has had a really different perspective on the experiences they've had of coming from the police force and working in the police force. What was your experience like? And actually, how did you find in terms of things like resilience and in terms of experiences and working in challenging environments, how did you find that whole thing?
I mean, it was certainly an eye-opener because I would say when I joined the police at the very young age of 22 years old, I was extremely naive. And as a police officer, you are thrown in at the deep end. And ultimately, as I said earlier, no day is the same. And potentially what you are facing could be life-changing, not just to yourself, but to the other people involved. And, you know, unfortunately, Nick, when I joined the police, we were operating out of 3 police stations with in excess of 20 officers on duty at any one time. And then towards the end of my sort of stint on response, as it were, we were operating from 1 station with a handful of officers. So it was challenging, it was dangerous. And I mean, it was fantastic because we were part of a team, you know, you had that camaraderie, they were your family. But it was scary, and there were certainly moments whereby I felt that, you know, potentially I could be injured. And in fact, I have been assaulted on duty. Thankfully not sort of seriously, but I have been in that position whereby I have genuinely been frightened. And, you know, I mean, people think that as a police officer, you know, you put on your stab vest, you know, you've got your handcuffs and your parva and you're kind of fully equipped, but, you know, ultimately you're not. And if you are on your own, whether a male or a female, you're vulnerable. You're extremely vulnerable. I really genuinely do. And I know that it's got worse through speaking to colleagues of mine, well, ex-colleagues of mine that are still in the job. Through austerity and budget cuts, it has got significantly worse. And I take my hat off to anyone working within the blue line now, you know, whether that's paramedics, fire, you know, nurses, doctors, but especially police officers who basically put their lives in danger every day to protect us.
Yeah, absolutely. On a personal level, did you find that it kind of tainted your experience or belief of humanity and stuff, and actually seeing that, like you said, that kind of self-admittedly kind of naive approach going in, as we all do when we're kind of young, we're ready, yeah, we're going to be, but actually did it taint your experience of life generally?
I wouldn't say it tainted. I mean, it certainly opened my eyes, and I wasn't naive after a very short period of time anymore. But ultimately, what it kind of did make me realize is just how fortunate I am. And, ultimately, there are a lot of people out there that aren't in as fortunate position. And what you'll sort of generally tend to find is that vicious circle, really. And, through kind of lack of education, knowledge, support, drugs, alcohol, abuse, there are a lot of people that are affected as a result of that. Mental health is another big one, as you're very familiar with.
Yeah.
So it gave me that respect, and it gave me that it gave me the knowledge and the understanding that, everyone is different, but there's usually a reason for that. And whether it's an upbringing, whether it's through meeting someone and becoming an addict as a result of that, it could be sort of financial implications, etc. It really did kind of open my eyes and gave me that respect. And as a police officer, we do treat everyone well. I mean, I say we, I did treat everyone individually, and everyone is unique in their own way. And ultimately, it's made me sort of realize now that to sort of, in a way, value life and just make the most of what you've got. And everyone is, it sounds really cheesy, doesn't it? But everyone is on their own kind of journey.
Yeah, I think you're right, actually, and I'm glad that kind of the experience kind of has reinforced that belief in you, because we've already heard from a couple of people that actually kind of went the opposite way and really kind of forced them down a spiral they couldn't get back from, in that sense. And it's a difficult one, but I guess that's the same with everything, isn't it? It's that same energy that could be the catalyst for positive change, could be the same catalyst that destroys somebody else. And I think that's the bit that we try and catch people. I think the amplified version is what you did in the police force, isn't it? That's what you're trying to do, is to give people that the hope and support with the people that don't feel they have it right there.
And you know what? As a police officer, there were certain parts of my career whereby I could have gone down that rabbit hole, and I could have easily gone down that rabbit hole, that funnel, as it were, and not come back out of the other end. But I think because of the fact that I've got such a good support network and ultimately a purpose, I'm very driven in that I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to end up in that situation. And I think that, again, that's one of the reasons, I did take that leap of faith to leave the police. I think as soon as it does start to affect your well-being, no job is worth that. And I have colleagues that are still in the police now that are suffering, and they ultimately, their well-being and their mental health as a result of that is sort of significantly depreciated to the point where it's affecting their day-to-day life. I just feel so lucky not to be in that position and to have been able to identify it and sort of made choices the right choices when I did.
Yeah, absolutely, and in a different way, I guess, in a unique way, that the contact center environment can also be equally as brutal for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
Especially if you're dealing with, I mean, your experience at the contact center, was that dealing with kind of response calls, or was it something else? Or
yeah, I mean, a multitude really of dealing with the 101 and 999 calls, to actually dealing with the staff in there and making the changes with them. So I got to sort of see both sides. And I thought it was really, really important, actually, when I was on the change management team, that if I'm making changes, I actually understand exactly what they go through. So I actually trained as well to become a 999 and 101 operator. So I was able to take those calls. And it really does kind of, and I always say this, as a police officer, you're sent to a job with all the information that you need to keep you safe. What you sort of take, and not what you sort of take for granted, is the person sat on the other end of the phone, who's that first point of contact, actually obtaining those details. And I gained a huge respect for the police control room operators within that environment, because, as I said, they are that first point of contact, and they have to get that information from that individual as quickly, as expeditiously as they can. And they are under a significant amount of pressure to do that.
Yeah, and I doff my cap to you. I wish everybody had your approach. I think, to me, it's clear why you are so successful in the training world, because of that approach, like to learn something from the grassroots up and to get that understanding. I think for a lot of people may not see that as they kind of have this assumption, Joe Public have this assumption of contact centers. And as you know, I work a lot in this space. Actually, this week, that's what I've been doing all week.
Yeah.
That they kind of see that it's just kind of like this kind of annoyance. They have an attachment to the word contact center as a stigma, especially when it's attached to the corporate world, I think. And as you'll understand with your other training activities. But if you think about that, it takes a strong mindset to be potentially either dealing with life and death on every call, or to be told to F off multiple times a day, and it's obviously targeted, it's timed, and all these kind of things thrown into the mix. You do need a lot of resilience to kind of be successful in that space, don't you?
You do. You need an awful lot of resilience. And some people may think I'm speaking out of term here, but I don't believe there is enough support for both police control room operators and police officers who are dealing with that day in, day out. And, as you said, the resilience and, the fact that one day, well, got in respect to the police control room operators, it could be dealing with a fatal collision on the motorway to someone who's, suicidal on the other end of the phone, an extremely vulnerable customer, as it were, to the flip side, and a police officer actually then having to go out to that and dealing with maybe a sudden death, dealing with the family, or dealing with people that, ultimately are violent and very, very challenging. I never really saw any support when I was in the police to deal with that and to help those individuals. And it was something actually I was very passionate about. And when I was in the police control room, when I was in contact management, I actually set up a room away from the actual radio as such, so that if a police control room operator, we call them PCROs, did take that call and just needed 10 minutes away, they could go into the room with someone and just sort of vent and have that conversation and just be able to kind of go through what's happened, analyze it, reflect on it without kind of being thrown into another call.
Yeah.
And it was really effective and it worked. And I really hope, I'm not sure about this, but I really hope that that's still going now, without me, being able to sort of manage that.
With your training hat on, do you do any work in kind of the blue light kind of area now?
Well, ultimately sort of having the contract in Saudi, and that was sort of primarily blue light. What I sort of tend to do now is that in respect of Help Me Angela, I don't know are we in a position to be able to talk about that yet?
But yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I just wanted to... Look, the reason I do it this way, and I'll be completely honest with you, this isn't some like clever structure, is because so my mind can keep up with where we are. So I need to do it in this kind of chronological order. And again, that's why I do it this way. There's no, look, honestly, I'm as dumb as I look. But yes, that kind of link up with Help Me Angela, because I'm right in saying obviously there is a lot of kind of blue light knowledge behind the product as well, isn't there? So tell us about Help Me Angela, kind of how it started, what it's about, and how it helps people.
Yeah, so Help Me Angela actually was an idea that was first kind of thrown about in India. However, due to sort of cultural differences, it didn't work there at the time. So kind of through a friend of a friend of a friend, it was brought over to the UK, and it sort of started life. It was about 3 years ago, so before I joined the company anyway. And ultimately, it is about kind of providing a personal safety app to people to enable them to feel safer, whether that's in the workplace or outside the workplace, i.e., going about your sort of daily business. We are kind of, and what we're very passionate about is that what we want to do is try to prevent someone from becoming the victim of crime. And that could be through support, reassurance, education, which is vitally important. Let's say, for instance, you're in a situation whereby you're walking down the street and you believe that someone may be following you. Now, as a police officer, when I used to deal with people who said, for instance, had become a victim of a sexual offence by the perpetrator who was initially following them, and they believed that that person was following them, one of the first questions you ask is, why didn't you contact the police at the time? And usually the reply that you would get, Nick, is, well, I didn't know for sure that they were following me. I didn't want to waste the police's time, etc. So that's the sort of response that you would normally get. So what Help Me Angela offers is that we have an app which is downloadable, and if you believe that, if you're in a situation like that, and it can be any situation whereby you believe that you may become the victim of a crime, you might come to some kind of harm, then you can press a help me button on the app. And what the help me button does is, and this is where I come into it, is it connects you immediately to a personal safety specialist. And the personal safety specialists have been trained by myself to the standard of a 999 operator. So that's kind of like where I come into it. So our dedicated team of personal safety specialists, we actually outsource our contact centre to Lemon Contact Centre, and they're based in Stockton-on-Tees. And the pool of dedicated personal safety specialists are available 24/7. So we are and that's one of our USPs, in that we are the only personal safety app in the UK whereby as soon as you press that button, as soon as you send an urgent message, one of our team will get back to you immediately.
Wow.
So it was really, for us, it's vitally important that there's a human being at the other end of the phone. And that's why our personal safety specialists have been trained for any eventuality. So it could be someone who's being followed, or it could be someone that has been the victim of a crime. It could be someone who, for instance, is the victim of domestic abuse. It could be someone within the workplace who's the victim of harassment or, a sexual offence, for instance. We will deal with that person in any eventuality, and whether they want to either report it to the police, whether they want to be signposted, whether they just want someone to talk to, we'll always be there for them.
So are you truly being heard in life and in business? And think about that genuinely. If the answer to that is no, then you've found the right event. If you want to give yourself that boost personally and professionally, come along to Find Your Voice Live. This will change your life. This will be the game changer that you've been looking for.
It provides me with the confidence in myself to prove to myself that I can do it, I can get up on stage, I can speak.
There's absolutely nothing to be nervous about with these events. It's very, very open, very, very relaxed.
Help my confidence go from here at the beginning of the day to here at the end of the day.
Hey everyone, my name is Nick Elston. I'm an inspirational speaker on the lived experience of mental health and a transformational speaking coach. I'm the founder of Forging People, and Find Your Voice Live is our flagship event where we cross the boundaries of personal development, mental health, transformation and public speaking. Your ability to speak, to deliver any message to any audience with clarity and power and emotion will have an ultimately defining impact on your success by your own definition of that really subjective term. Speaking is life, speaking is business, speaking is education, and that's the thing that we focus on most. What I find is that people are here for many, many different reasons. Some people do absolutely want to be a stage speaker or a professional speaker. Some people want to be able to represent their business or to lead a team or inspire a movement or create a story. But even actually, some people want to be here just because they want to be heard at home. Maybe they don't feel their opinions being heard, that they can't say yes to the things they want to say yes to, or no to the things they want to say no to. Again, this is where personal development meets mental health, meets public speaking to create a real positive impact. At the end of Find Your Voice Live, you will walk away with massive confidence around delivering your message. The ability to stand up and deliver means you will enhance your self-esteem in an amazing way. You will also have the skills and tools and tips and techniques to not only deliver a presentation, but to structure a presentation, to find your audience, to be able to deliver emotional storytelling to help your audience feel and make them want to be part of your tribe, make them want to be part of your following, and really tune into what you're truly about, to truly make yourself heard in life and in business. If you're sat on the fence, if you're still not sure, take the model that I use, say yes, worry about it later, and I'll make sure that you're looked after brilliantly. Myself and my team will make sure that you have an amazing day, transformational day that will have the desired positive impact that you want to achieve. Amazing. Phenomenal. It's such a great product and a great service. And
It is.
The fact that they're trained by you, I know going to be a very good quality. Genuinely not saying that just because you're on the call. Yeah. I think the way that you go about things is very impressive, and I think that I think it amplifies the brand that kind of I've seen behind the scenes as well. You've been very kind enough to kind of show me behind the scenes, and something that I signpost to for the Need Help page on my website now as well. The one question I never asked you, don't think, is actually, where did the Angela bit come from? Was there an Angela?
So Angela is actually the Hebrew word for angel. And we believe that, so we believe that everyone should have a guardian angel, because our purpose is that feeling safe isn't a privilege, it's your right. So it's your right to feel safe. It's your right to be able to walk down the street and not feel that you could become the victim of a crime. I mean, even now, Nick, for instance, when I get into my car, I lock the doors straight away.
Yeah.
If I'm going out for a walk, I'll always just have like one earphone in rather than two, just so I know what's going on around me. We shouldn't have to live in a world like that, but unfortunately we do. And, you know, you've seen in the news recently, things are getting worse. What we want to do is offer that permanent reassurance that someone has got that person. And we aren't a tracking app. We'll only know the location of our members when they want us to.
Yeah.
And by knowing their location, we can guide them to a place of safety. If we need to involve the emergency services, we know exactly their last known location, as it were.
Yeah.
But we'll only know that when our members want us to.
And in terms of how do people go about kind of becoming members and having the app?
It's really very simple. All they have to do is, you know, depending on whether they're on Android or iOS, just go to their relevant store, as it were, their app store, download the app, and all the details will be on there for them to follow. And I will also add, if I can, Nick, is that...
Of course.
Michelle Roycraft and I, so she's our, as I mentioned earlier, our chief ambassador. It was really important for us as well that, as you're probably aware, during the sort of judicial process, a police officer will deal with the victim initially. They'll then deal with the suspect, the perpetrator, as it were. Possibly that person will go to court, they'll be charged, etc. And who generally tends to get lost throughout that process, which on some occasions can be extremely long, you know, sometimes it could be years from A to B, as it were. Who generally gets lost in that process is the victim. What we wanted to do, and this is something that, you know, I mean, I couldn't do as a police officer, because we just don't have, we don't have the budget, we don't have the capacity, etc., is to be able to give that victim, as it were, the ability to recover. So what we offer as well as part of the membership, so as well as the contact centre, the personal safety specialists, we also have a very unique incident recovery programme. So if you, God forbid, if you are the victim of a crime, let's say, for instance, you're the victim of a sexual offence and you need counselling, rehabilitation therapy, etc., then we will provide that for you free of charge. If you're the victim of a robbery, for instance, and you have your mobile phone stolen, we will replace your mobile phone. So, you know, in relation to scar treatment, dental treatment, emergency accommodation for victims of domestic abuse, we want to be with our members throughout. And, you know, we kind of were so passionate about getting that member back to how they were, that we will be with them along their journey.
Wow. So this isn't just kind of end users that are using this. Actually, you work with organizations and corporations and workforces to kind of help roll this out as well, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah. You know, we work with a number of organisations to provide that adequate support, but we're also involved with a lot of organisations as well who are in a position really whereby they've identified there is a need to protect their employees within the workplace. Also, you know, because it's vitally important as well that employee comes to work the next day as well, you know, also. And it's kind of a bit of a light bulb moment, really, that we've seen very recently in a lot of organisations, in that, yeah, you know what, let's go that extra mile and let's do that little bit more to protect our staff.
Yeah.
Which is incredible. It really is.
It really is, absolutely. In terms of, I guess, personally, you're dealing with potentially some big heavy subjects with kind of big calls and that kind of stuff, whether directly or indirectly. How easy is it for you to kind of switch off at the end of the day?
I say this kind of like in respect of, I've had a lot of experience, shall we say. So I think because of that, I do have the ability to be able to switch off, albeit you never properly switch off. And as a police officer, you're always on duty. And it helped me, Angela, you're always on duty as well.
Yeah.
And if at 3 o'clock in the morning we have a member who needs us, then one of our team will also be alerted to that, so that we can ensure that the process has been followed and that person is okay. So as much as you can kind of switch off to a point, you're always on duty. You're always on shift.
But I guess there is that real risk of being the kind of wounded healer, that you're doing something for an absolute passion to help as many people as possible, but you give and give and give until you drop. And I think certainly I can stumble into that mindset sometimes. A lot of people like us that champion on the back of a passion can feel that way.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think because it's a passion, it's a vocation, it doesn't really feel like I'm coming to work every day, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely,
So you don't really have that sort of stress of a workplace as such. But I can honestly say, Nick, I still do have my holidays. So don't feel that sorry for me.
I thought I was going to get a violin out in a second.
No, don't feel that sorry for me.
So I guess how do you plan for kind of growth and stuff, that because obviously, as we know, kind of with any form of app or solution, there's a potential for kind of very big kind of scale up. How do you plan for that in terms of having to have people there trained and qualified to answer your calls? Do you have kind of an idea of growth based on what's happened before, or what's your growth plan for this?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, we have a growth plan as a business, and ultimately contingencies. And I don't know if you've heard, you probably will have heard of the Erlang-C calculations for contact centres. So in relation
I haven't actually. I can learn something there.
The Erlang-C calculation. So you look at demand and capacity, etc., and it calculates really well. It's an estimate, but it gives you an idea of how many dedicated. I can see you writing this down. How many dedicated members of staff do you need, compared to how many members you have? So one of our kind of, when we were looking for a contact centre, as well as wanting a contact centre that kind of fit in with our values, we also wanted to ensure that they could grow as quickly as we could. And that's why we sort of chose Lemon, because of that. As well as having a dedicated pool of personal safety specialists, we also have a massive pool of non-dedicated. To be fair, I think they form probably 70% of the FTE within the call centre. So because of that, at any one time, if, say, for instance, demand, let's say it's Friday evening and demand it is higher than usual, then we know we've got that contingency. And then in relation to growth, we know that we've got that backup support, but also as well, because of the location, the geographic, and the fact that, Lemon Contact Centre has such a good reputation for looking after its staff, we know we'd be able to get new members of staff on board very quickly and get those trained up.
Fantastic. Love it. I think I said, and like I said, it's the way that the app's growing, and with the quality and the skill set of the people and the experience of the people, you can only really see this going one way. I find it really amazing. Yeah, no, it is. It's in, like I said before, and I keep saying this, sometimes I have to pinch myself, because I do feel very lucky and privileged to be part of this journey, and to see us kind of grow from that little acorn, as it were, to where we are now. And we have an amazing team. Everyone we're very much we very much collaborate. We don't run on a hierarchy of, you're more important than I am. We all basically, we all collaborate together, and we all have the same input, which is incredible. So there's no one trying to step on each other's toes, because we all have the same purpose and we all want the same outcome. So albeit we all do different things within the business, we're all driven to achieve the same goal. Which, again, in terms of the hierarchy especially, that's very different to the cultures that you've been from, isn't it? Where there is a very clear, defined structure of... And you know what? I don't think I would ever want to go back to that kind of brains hierarchy, whereby you've got your own, you can imagine it, can't you? I don't think I would ever, to go back to that kind of political corporate world again, because... Yeah, me and you both. I mean, for what we are and for what we are wanting to achieve,
the way that we are structured fits that. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with certain hierarchies, but I think moving forwards, organisations have certainly got to be a lot more agile and allow for that sort of flux and transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it genuinely, when I first had that kind of chat with yourself and then yourself and Michelle as well, that I was left with that kind of thing, like, actually, what's wrong with this? Because why isn't this on everybody's phone in the country kind of thing? And I think when something is so obviously really good, it does kind of make you kind of think that the skill set that's gone into produce this and the thought, and like I said, especially with the experiences that you have of professionally and also personally, has to be said along the way as well. I think there's so much to be said for that. So yeah, keep on doing what you're doing. But I do want to talk away from kind of work stuff as well. So Sarah, when you were charging your batteries, what do you love doing? Like what hobbies do you have? What do you love to do?
What do I love to do? Well, as you can probably tell, I'm very sort of theatrical, so I love getting on the stage and singing.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm not a very good dancer. I'll be honest with you. Maybe after like a few drinks, you might see a little bit of a boogie from me. But no, I tend to sort of stick to singing and a bit of acting thrown in there as well. So I love amateur dramatics. Yeah, really, really enjoy that. I love nothing more, and this is where my holidays do come in. I love nothing more than a nice weekend away, and I'm very fortunate that the Lake District is literally an hour away from me.
Beautiful, yeah, it really is.
I know, very, very fortunate. So I can just jump in my car and off I go for the weekend. So that's something that I really enjoy doing to switch off. Love going to, so as well as being on the stage, I also love to go and watch musicals and you know, productions, that kind of thing. Love going down to London for the weekend and being a tourist, which is nice. And predominantly the majority of the people that I work with at Help Me Angela do kind of live in London and the surrounding areas. So when, you know, they're so used to that, what I sort of call, like, it's just manic when you go down there and everyone's running everywhere. I'm not particularly used to that up north, but I love going down to London as a tourist.
Yeah, do you know, I get what you mean on that. Kind of like, I'm still the country boy at heart. When I go across to London, and I'm like, where's everyone rushing on to? Like, everyone just chilled out. we're going to be fine. It's all going to be good. It's interesting you said that. My dancing days stopped when I stopped drinking, which is probably no coincidence. But next month, as this is going out in November, that next month, I think yourself and Michelle will be coming to my Find Your Voice event here in Bristol, and
that's in December, isn't it?
Yes, I'll be very very keen to kind of see your theatrical skills.
Oh, okay.
You'll enjoy it. So I have a resident vocal coach. I think you're going to really enjoy her a bit. So Emma Nestor, she's amazing. So we're going to do some kind of vocal exercises. So you're going to be top of class for that, I'm sure.
Oh, brilliant. No, I'm really looking forward to that.
It's going to be
really
fun.
Excited, actually. And do you know what? Bristol's somewhere I've never been to. So I'm also enjoying coming down there as well.
Lots of recommendations for places to visit locally. Absolutely. That's going to be
brilliant.
So I can't believe our time has flown. It's crazy. So we're definitely going to get you back for a future episode for sure, because one episode is not long enough, I don't think. But before I let you go and release you back into the wilds of Preston, I am now going to set the scene. This would be very apt for you being on stage, actually. I am now the MC of the O2 Arena in London. 20,000 people have paid their hard-earned money to come and hear you do your thing. You sat back in the green room sipping a Prosecco, and you hear me announce your name. And your walk-on music kicks in. That song that motivates you, but lifts you, that gets you at peak state. What would your walk-on music be and why?
Oh, right. Okay. My walk-on music would be, do you know what? Believe it or not, it would be Queen, We Are the Champions.
Nice tune. Love that.
It really would. And do you know, I actually first heard that song in 1994.
Okay.
So I was 12 years old. I remember it vividly. I was 12 years old. I was at Ewood Park supporting Blackburn Rovers when they won the Premier League. You know, Alan Shearer was at the top of his game at that point.
I remember that well,
that. Yeah. And I remember sort of being on the Jack Walker stand and celebrating to We Are the Champions. And I mean, kind of when you're 12 years old, you don't really have a care in the world, do you? And,
No.
if you'd have asked me when I was 12 years old, would I be having a conversation with Nick Elston on the 28th of October, 2022? I'd have gone, what are you talking about? You're crazy. But I think for me, like the song, it really resonates because I have had a roller coaster of a journey, and like the song lyrics, made plenty of mistakes along the way. But, as I said earlier, I'm just grateful to have had the opportunity to experience this, in what I say, an incredible learning journey. And it does make me extremely appreciative of where I am now.
Oh, I love that. Do you still go to watch Blackburn?
Do I still got, do you know what? I don't. Even though I'm literally only about 10 minutes from Ewood Park, I watch them on TV, but I always find my Saturdays doing something else. But I think in respect to that, and one thing I'd like to sort of leave this conversation is that for me, it's about your Ikigai, it's about your passion, it's about your purpose. And I do have these conversations daily, really, with people. I was even sort of having the same conversation with my hairdresser yesterday, in that, just keep fighting for what you believe in and never give up. And just recognize that importance of self-actualization in just finding something that you love and that you're passionate about. And I think if you do that, number one, you're extremely lucky, but you really can't go far wrong in life.
What a beautiful way to end this episode on.
Thank you.
We Are the Champions will be added to the playlist available at the end of season 5 from everybody's choices. And we all know it can make you time travel. Music can lift your state instantly. This is going to be another playlist. Fantastic playlist so far. So, Sarah Adderley, big round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving up your busy time to be with us today. It's been so nice to talk to you.
You too. Thanks ever so much, Nick.
Very welcome. I hope everybody else has enjoyed it as much as I have. I'm sure you have. So tomorrow we have Sam Fitzgibbon. So Sam is a mental health champion and campaigner and recently released author. And she'll be talking all things about mental health and her own personal journey too. So stay tuned for that episode. That'll be day 4 of the Podcast A Day release week. And in the meantime, stay well, be happy, take care. See you soon, guys. Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye.